Hi, my name is Selena Aguilera, and I will be presenting the Kindred, the graphic novel of Chapter The Rope 210 to the end 233. My role in this project, for my reading, I will be discussing the Kindred, the graphic novel. I basically did everything. I'm just doing this on myself, but I am responsible for basically everything, for the leading, for the summary, selecting and analyzing the discussion passage, and creating two open-minded questions, including one that connects to a present-day issue that I just added for the ideas and the interactive activity and participation of this whole project. The historical context detailed the rope that takes place in Annabelle South, where slavery remains legal and accepted institution. The chapter is set during a time when civil war is approaching, but the system of slavery is deeply rooted and entrenched in everyday life. As a white plantation owner's, Rufus, a slaveholder, represents a generational legacy of white supremacy. And the patriotic control. Dana's presence as a modern black woman from the 20th century highlights the contrast in values, especially regarding autonomy, consent, and justice. Rufus grows increasingly possessive and unstable. We see how in the power dynamic between an enslaver and enslaved spiral into inevitable violence. The context is important because it shows how violence and control were normalized in the institution of slavery, not just through physical abuse, but through emotional manipulation and psychological warfare. Butler's deception in the graphic novel form makes this context more immediate and versatile. I also wanted to add that from page 210, that the end of the rope to page 233, the tension between Dana and Rufus reaches its breaking point. Dana returns to the past after Alice's suicide. I feel like when I saw that part of Alice being hung, and it was just kind of so sudden, but it's like it was just a lot going on. I think death was pretty triggering, and I feel that the suicide part was a lot, like, even just looking at it in a comic version of it, it's still very intense and kind of like, wow, like, sudden. It's like not sudden, but it's sudden at the same time. I feel that Diana's return to the past of Alice's, which is triggered by Rufus forging letters to make it believe her husband sold her, which I feel that was like more of a narcissistic move for him to do that, to like switch things up and make it seem like she was sold, Alice was sold, when in reality she wasn't. But obviously, like, to go up against somebody like that, especially a white slave owner, and trying to manipulate issues, and it's just so insane just to know that this was going on. And it's like, even he thought he was gonna get away with it, but we'll see about that later on. Which is that this act of betrayal shows Rufus' descent as desperation and dominance. Dana realized that Rufus has become full reflection of his father. Cruelty and obsession with control extends even someone that claims to care for. In a powerful moment, Dana confronts Rufus after he tries to rape her. She is forced to kill him in self-defense. This act is not only means of physical survival, but metaphorically serving of the ties of the past. However, this doesn't come without consequences. Diana returns to her own time with a permanent physical injury, her arm fused in the wall, symbolizing the way trauma doesn't simply end when we leave a violent situation. It becomes part of who we are. Hold on. This chapter challenges the reader to consider what it means to break cycles of abuse, historical trauma. Dana actions are a form of resistance, and they leave scars. This echoes through the present-day experience of people still affected by systematic racism and historical inequality. Page Sorry about that. So, just left my. Okay, so something that a passage for discuss. I never realized how easy people could be trained to accept slavery. Page 211. So Diana's reflection here is chilling because it captures how social systems shape beliefs, behaviors, and enslaved chapters in the story often comply with the rules for survival, but so do the enslavers. They follow script and they believe is their right. This line invites discussion of how today can become passive or accepting of injustice simply because it was part of a system they were born into, which I feel like there was really no choice, especially in this situation when it's like you're in survival mode. So basically it's like, I mean, you've seen movies or even old films, it's like usually the black woman or the black man or their family, they basically have to allow themselves because it's like it's so sad, and to know that there's people that will take advantage, and it's just like, what choices do they have? It's like to survive and to live, and just to see that these people get away with it with no accountability. I feel as though that was pretty deep, to know that they have to accept everything with no hearsay or anything. They have no way to actually defend themselves, because whatever they say, it still seems that they will never, these people, black African Americans, will never really get justice, and this issue will always be an issue regardless if we try to change and do better, but it seems like it's just getting worse. And I have some discussion questions with its answers. Answers that this refers to how society conditions people to normalize oppressive system. For example, Alice chooses to end her life because of all the resistance crushed. Even Diana, at the times, is forced to comply to survive. Rufus sees his actions as love, showing how twisted justifications can become the power is involved, which I feel as though that this means like they don't take any accountability. I feel like this white plantation owner, Rufus, does not take accountability. He knows what he's doing. He will never he'll take advantage. It doesn't matter what anybody says. I think he will just do whatever he wants, regardless of knowing that it's wrong. And he feels, well, he's dominant. He wants dominance, so he will do things pretty intense and crazy and outrageous just to see a reaction. But he really likes dominance, if anyone can actually understand that. But so from the reading, Diana kills Rufus not out of hatred but necessity. How necessary I can even pronounce it. How does the blur lines between justice and survival mortality? Did she have another choice? And I added that Diana's act of violence is the last of she tried reasoning and escape and distance. In the end, Rufus' behavior left her with no option. The blurs in the lines between self-defense and moral judgment. It also forces readers to ask what justice looks like when institutions fail, which I honestly feel like I can actually see and actually know that, because I've also have encountered this before, not even too long ago. But I mean, when you're in that position, I mean, I feel like nobody deserves to be in that position, but you're going to figure out a way to survive, regardless if it means fighting back or not fighting back or complying to the person that's trying to do harm, which is sad, because it's just like we were taught to defend or do whatever it takes to survive. But then it's like, if you put hands on somebody, like, there is consequences to even hurting somebody that is trying to hurt you, which I feel that justice and like what's fair is never fair. And it's like we're taught that what's wrong from right, and then usually what we think is right was actually wrong. What's wrong is right. and that just confuses everything. So that's why I feel that the system has really failed us in those ways, where you feel that you're doing good by trying to survive some situation, when it's like somebody's gonna figure out some way to find a flaw where they could justify their actions. Especially in this case, when Rufus was trying to justify what he was doing out of like good, but in reality it was just for dominance and selfish and narcissistic and crazy things that he knew that was wrong. But who knows why he would, who knows what if it didn't lead to her like in self-defense grabbing the knife and basically defending herself. I mean, I feel like she probably could have gotten killed, because in that time it's like they could do whatever, slave owners could do whatever they want. And I feel as though that she had every right to defend herself. For somebody that also has faced a situation similar to that, I actually give her props. But I feel so bad, because it's like these people, even at that time, they're going to find something wrong where he did no harm. It's like he's a white man and she's black and she's a slave, and obviously they're not going to take her word for it. And regardless of whatever she say, they're not going to listen, which is pretty sad to me, even though she was trying to get away from him, and she did try. But they will not see that. They will ignore all that and not see any flaws that what she'd had to deal with to survive. My other thing is, beyond the text, Diana's trauma follows her to the present, both physically, her arm and injury, and mentally. What connections can we draw between Diana's generational trauma and the historical injustice affect descendants of enslaved people today? And the answer, the injury, is a symbolic of how history leaves lasting damage. Even when slave ends, the legacy remains. Issues like racial profiling, economic disparity, mass incarceration all reflect on the continuation of the systematic oppression, which I can say that I've felt like even when I was younger, that I never really would think about these things or encountered them. I feel like racism, regardless of anywhere you go, it's always going to be around. Regardless, we could educate people, and I feel that this has been an issue that will always be an issue. Like I always thought when we were younger, when we were learning about Black History Month, that they got their justice, and made like these teachers would make it sound like they got justice and all kinds of things. But then in reality, it's like if you go deep in their stories, from Martin Luther King to the Black Panthers to Rosa Parks and everybody, it's just like they make it sound like it was a happy ending, but in reality they had to go through something just to get where they are, to get a reaction, knowing that this has become a problem where it's like it's not fair. And these people do not see it as an issue when they know it is an issue, but they just try to brush it under a rug where nobody could really see what the mess they caused. Okay, and Diana's trauma follows her in the present, both physically, I just said that. How to interpret the graphic novel using a visual storytelling, especially during the moments of violence compared to traditional novels. Does it enhance or change emotional response? So many students note that the violence in illustrated form makes it more real and harder to ignore. The facial expressions, body language, and panel pacing build emotional impacts that word alone may never fully convey. And so that's honestly what I feel, that even though we're seeing this illustrated in a graphic novel, I think the facial expressions kind of give you an idea, because it's like we could read about it, and it's like when you look at these pictures you could see deeper. That's how I feel, that if somebody were to give me a picture of something like a meaning, it's like these pictures have a lot that was going on during when they took the picture. I feel as though that when taking pictures, it's like I would hear this phrase, it's like every picture has 1,000,000 words or 1,000 words, and it's just like I would always be like, what do they mean? Especially when I was growing up and I would hear that. I know it's not the same thing, but it's kind of similar to what I would hear. And a picture means 1,000,000 words or something like that, something similar to that. And I would be like, where do they, how can somebody actually come up with these things? And then it's like whenever you actually look at the history of whatever photo, or the Mona Lisa, or the Martin Luther King speech, or even celebrities too. Just these pictures of things like history. It just shows that these pictures had either something really deep and said, like, they look like they're happy or they're doing something. In reality, who knows what they had to go through before they took that picture or after they took pictures, because it's just like, oh, you look at pictures and it's like you don't really know what happened. They look like they're smiling or something, or even worse, they're hurt, they're injured, or something happened where they, like, this is basically recorded, and it will always forever be in the media, the news, the outlets, wherever anybody goes, it will always leave a footprint. And connecting to the class, think about an earlier text we read semester. Are there any themes, moments that connect with Dana's final edition of Alice's Resistance? So the answer would be some connections include themes of rebellion, silence, and bodily autonomy. In narratives like Frederick Douglass or Harriet Jacobs, we see similar survival strategies or moral dilemmas. So, I mean, that this has happened and it's been recorded in history. I know this is just a graphic novel, but the chances are it's happened. Like, these people did take advantage of these enslaved African Americans, and it's not even by their own choice or free will. I'm a strong believer of free will, but I feel that when just knowing that this happened, it's actually really heartbreaking, and knowing that they couldn't do anything, especially when it comes to children, because I'm like, watching them do things, especially to a child, it really triggers me. It's like, I know they're suffering, and I wouldn't be able to watch a child suffering, not even a man, a woman, an elder. I couldn't do it. I couldn't, and etc. But I can't see that, and I feel that this part of the book, The Rope, really got me thinking, like, dang, like, I thought I would, if I was younger, I would be like, why would this happen to me? But do people actually go through this, something similar, where I feel that this book and this chapter, I could connect with Dana in that situation, because it's pretty similar to what I went through. But it's so sad and sudden, but it's just like, I know she will not get justice, especially even in that time, where she would have been her and she would be seen as evil and horrible because she killed this guy, but it was out of self-defense. But if it was the other way around, like, he would never get in, she would never get any justice, and Dana would never get justice if Rufus actually was the one that killed her, and they'll just be like, oh, it never happened, and who cares? So I have some of these questions from Kahoot with the answers, but I did everything. I appreciate that Professor King allowed me to finish one of our last readings with a bang. These readings and meanings behind our own political thoughts through these books. So the discussion insight was, Dana's reflection here is chilling because it captures how social systems shape and beliefs and behaviors in enslaved characters. And the story often complies with the ruler for survival, but so do the enslavers. They follow a script and they believe that is their right. These lines invite discussions on how people today can also become passive and accepting injustice simply because it is part of a system they were born into. And that's all I have. Thank you so much.